5:11 here on the East Coast. Welcome back to Live Now from Fox, and good morning to you if you're just now tuning in. I'm Jeané Franseen. Right now, we do want to transition to a news alert as relates to conflict in the Middle East. As we do so, I do want to transition to give you a live look at the Israel-Gaza border on this Wednesday morning. Look there in the distance, plumes of smoke. So we are working to see if that's a part of that new ground operation. Of course, we are waiting this morning for a response from Israel to Monday's news that Hamas has shown a positive response to the latest ceasefire proposal. The deal is being brokered by Middle Eastern diplomats. Let's check in now with Fox News national correspondent Jeff Paul. He has the latest details from Tel Aviv.
As Israel moves tanks into position ahead of a planned operation targeting Gaza City, there is a renewed push by Egyptian and Qatari mediators to end the war for good. A diplomatic source tells Fox News Hamas has agreed to a new ceasefire deal that is 98% similar to the last U.S.-backed proposal, which Israel had previously approved.
If we do not reach an agreement now, we are facing a humanitarian catastrophe that will make the catastrophes that preceded it seem tiny before it.
The new agreement involves a 60-day ceasefire that would see the release of 10 living hostages and the return of several bodies. 20 hostages are believed to be alive. In exchange, Israel would free Palestinian prisoners and begin a phased withdrawal from Gaza. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu responding with some skepticism.
I hear the reports in the media, and from them you can be impressed by one thing: Hamas is under immense pressure.
But so is the Israeli government, as protests continue to erupt throughout the country, calling for a deal.
We just need the president, Mr. Witkoff, and others just to push it in to the end zone and get the deal done. We know it's possible.
President Trump weighing in on social media, saying in part, "We will only see the return of the remaining hostages when Hamas is confronted and destroyed. The sooner this takes place, the better the chances of success will be." But Palestinians in Gaza say time is running out.
There is no life left. As you can see, living conditions are hard.
Israel says it's now reviewing the proposal that Hamas already agreed to and will have a response by the end of the week. But it's worth noting that Prime Minister Netanyahu has long stood firm that the only way to truly end this war is by eliminating Hamas once and for all. In Tel Aviv, Jeff Paul, Fox News.
All right, Jeff, thank you so much for that detailed report. A lot to dissect and discuss this morning as relates to Middle East conflict. So we want to bring into the conversation expert on the Middle East with the University of New Haven, Ken Gray. Ken, good morning. Always a pleasure.
Good morning, Jeané. Glad to be back with you.
So a lot to dissect. I want to first start with this new ground operation. A lot of criticism on Israel this morning about this ground operation, saying it's taking away from the reality of a ceasefire. Break that down for us.
Sure. So Gaza City has been under attack, under air attack by Israel now for several days. And this renewed effort there in Gaza City has now seen a call up of an additional 60,000 troops, plus 20,000 troops that are currently there have been told that they are going to be extended. And consequently, Israel is ready to devote a lot more resources back into the Gaza Strip, most specifically aimed at Gaza City. The idea here is to root out Hamas and hold the territory, which is a different approach than what the IDF had been taking, where they would go in, clear an area, then continue moving elsewhere and not hold the area that they had cleared. Hamas was able to get back into some of these areas, and consequently, they continued to be a problem. So this operation is called Gideon's Chariots, and the call out went out just during the night, and we will see how quickly they are able to put additional troops into Gaza City.
And speaking of that operation, the latest from Israel Defense Forces, they put this out about 30 minutes ago on this Wednesday on X. They say, quote, over the last few days, IDF troops resumed operations in Jabalia and the outskirts of Gaza City. As you just mentioned there, Ken, IDF saying, quote, the troops are dismantling military infrastructure above and below ground, eliminating terrorists and consolidating operational control in the area while warning civilians to evacuate south for their safety. concerned this morning about the hostages still in Hamas captivity. Are they safe while this new ground operation is underway?
Yeah, that's a good question about the safety of the hostages. Of course, they are the only real bargaining chip that Hamas still has to be able to try to get Israel to stop this and to survive. Remember, as we've talked about before, that as long as Hamas survives this conflict, in reality, no matter how badly they are hurt, how badly they are damaged, Hamas wins, because they would have attacked Israel, they would have withstood their attacks, and they would continue being the governing force there in the Gaza Strip. And so Hamas has to keep those living hostages still alive so as to be able to use them effectively as a bargaining chip. That's what they're trying to do right now with this current peace agreement, that the ceasefire agreement that they are accepting, is that they are trying to use it, but not to release all the hostages, but instead to only release some of the hostages over the 60-day period. That is a deal that is going to be a deal breaker. Both Netanyahu and President Trump have both rejected that idea of only giving up some of the hostages. They want all the living hostages out in exchange for a potential ceasefire.
And world leaders keeping a close eye out on Gaza this morning. As I put on the screen a wide-scale view at the Israel-Gaza border, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese this Wednesday brushing off accusations from his Israeli counterpart Benjamin Netanyahu that the Australian leader is, quote, a weak politician who had betrayed Israel by recognizing a Palestinian state. The Associated Press reporting that Netanyahu's extraordinary public rebuke comes after an August 11th announcement by Albanese that his government's recognition of a Palestinian state will be formalized by the United Nations General Assembly in September. Of course, the announcement followed by that tit for tat that we saw, cancellations of Australian and Israeli visas. Ken, as we are further discussing this, we see world leaders at odds, many of them, when it comes to this, quote, Palestinian state. Break that down for us as we are looking at this conflict in real time.
Yeah, the concept of a Palestinian state right now, they don't have a capital. They don't control their borders. They're not really able to survive without external support, with aid coming in. So this is purely a symbolic recognition. Really does not carry that much weight, but it's meant to put pressure on Israel. If I went up and I looked at who has already recognized Palestine as a state, and there is a long list of countries that have already recognized Palestine as a state going back into the 1980s. And so, again, this most current go-round, we've got France, we've got the UK, we've got New Zealand, we have Australia now, the latest. These are all countries that either have already recognized Palestine as a state, or have said that if Israel does not meet certain conditions, they will recognize Palestine as a state within the next month or 2 months. And so trying to bring pressure to bear against Israel, but at the same time, what does that really mean? The Palestine or Gaza Strip really cannot function on its own. And so this is really symbolic more than anything else.
Ken, and as you did mention earlier in our discussions, Gideon's Chariots, I do want to share this with the viewers to further show that you know what you're talking about. The latest from the Jerusalem Post, as they say, Defense Minister Israel Katz approving this Wednesday morning the IDF takeover of Gaza City, dubbing the operation called Gideon's Chariots 2. So the reality of the situation, the ground operation will still be underway, Ken, but the reality of a ceasefire, that's what people are holding on to hope for.
Yes, and so Netanyahu is under a lot of pressure internally and externally to try to come to terms with Hamas for this ceasefire. This is an agreement where 98% of it was already on the table before, and that Israel had agreed to before, and Hamas had rejected. Now that Hamas is being threatened with this renewed effort in Gaza City, they're ready to come to the table. However, they still are holding on to their hostages. So I think the number of hostages that they are ready to release is going to be the stumbling block for this. If they were to give up the hostages they have, Israel would quickly agree to this, I believe, but Hamas then loses all of their chips in the game here as far as trying to survive. So Hamas giving up the hostages, Hamas ends up losing. Hamas holding on to the hostages, Israel continues to pound away at them. But things are not looking good for Hamas's long-term survival.
Been great. Always a pleasure to talk Middle East conflict with you. Thank you so much for joining us bright and early on this Wednesday. You have a great and safe rest of your day.
Thank you.
And really quickly, before we go to break, I do want to share this with you as we are further discussing that Gideon's Chariots that Ken mentioned. This just in from Israel Defense Forces in just a matter of seconds. They put this out on X saying, quote, as part of the next phase of Operation Gideon's Chariots, 60,000 reserve orders were issued this morning. 20,000 of those people no longer in the military having their service extended. The IDF values its reservists and their vital role in Israel's security.